Hi there, Coach Sage Canaday of VO2 Max Productions here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about long runs as a single workout, and this is a really important element in your training, whether you're a 5K runner who's just starting out, or a 10K runner who's just starting out, or you're looking to run your first marathon, or even beyond a marathon or half marathon, anything in between. Long run is a key workout, and I'm going to kind of break down this talk into three major sections. With the first section, I'm going to talk about where the long run fits into your overall training plan and what kind of adaptations come along with long run types of workouts. And then in the second section, I'm going to talk about how to determine what types of length you want or duration for your long run to be, and what types of paces or intensity your long runs should be at, depending on what event you're training for. And then in the third section, I'm going to talk about some example long run workouts that I found personally helpful in my training, as well as with athletes that we coach, and from what I've also seen in my 16 years of running year round at the professional level, collegiate level, and running with teammates much faster than me who are actually Olympians in the marathon. So it's kind of what I've learned over the years from that, and also reading a lot of books and through my coaches. But here we go. So obviously, if you're running a longer distance race, say a half marathon or a marathon versus a 5K or 10K, the long run, in my opinion, is the most important single type of workout that you could do if you're running a race that's going to last over 2 hours. So if you're running a half marathon and your finish time is going to be over 2 hours, the long run is the most important workout you can do. And also, every marathoner out there in the world record in the marathon hasn't been under 2 hours yet. So everyone who runs a marathon, long run's the most important. Everyone's running over more than 2 hours, usually 3 or 4 at least. And then ultra marathons, obviously, long run's a huge major workout, and it's the most specific to those types of events. If you have to race for over 2 hours, then the long run really simulates what you need to get through that distance event. And on the same token, it's also important for 5K and 10K and faster half marathon runners as well, and I'll get into that later with the pace and intensity. But the physical adaptations that go into making the long run happen are really beneficial, not only making you faster, but also stronger. And mainly people think just strength, but it also makes you faster. And there's all sorts of adaptations that happen within the body when you do long run workouts, from increasing basically your overall efficiency, how you could extract oxygen and utilize it in your muscles. At the cellular level, basically, you're developing a higher density of mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, as well as building capillary beds that fuel your muscles with good blood flow, improving your running form, improving your muscle tendon and skeletal muscular strength, really working your muscles, and then also really working on fat burning. You develop an ability at moderate intensities to burn fat more efficiently as a fuel, and it kind of spares some of those carbs in the form of glycogen in your body. You don't burn through those as fat because your body could tap into some of those fat stores, which is hugely beneficial for a race lasting over 2 hours. And where this fits in with the context of your training, long run should be done basically year round, in my opinion. And obviously, if you're training for a big event, you got a marathon or half marathon down the road, maybe you're 2 months out, 3 months out, you're going to want to be doing some pretty nice long runs and really get into your long runs. And generally, you start doing your long runs when you start training. You build your long run up, and it's during your aerobic base building phase. And I've done several talks on that there. I'll link to my periodization for marathon runners here, periodization of training in the aerobic base building phase. But you build your long run up there, and you should be hitting some pretty hard and long, high intensity long runs at least 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks out from your goal marathon race or your goal race to peak. Because it does take several weeks for those adaptations to really start kicking in, and there's a lot of residual fatigue that happens when you do a hard long run. But that's kind of the context that we're putting these long run workouts in. So for the duration and intensity or pace that you do these long runs at, again, it really depends on what your weekly mileage is, what your running history is, but also what event you're training for. Obviously, with people racing the marathon, your long run needs to be a bit longer, in my opinion. And some general rules of thumb, just in some of the most influential books I've read. I've probably read about 20 different running training books in my career, but this one, Jack Daniel's Distance Running Formula, my first book I read, it's original edition actually. Dr. Jack recommends pretty much between 25 to 30% of your weekly training volume. And that's a general good rule of thumb, because if you're running lower mileage, 50 miles a week, maybe you're only doing a 13-mile long run. I think you should probably go a little higher if you're more advanced, but we'll get into that later. Whereas if you're obviously running a lot higher mileage, 100 miles a week, you're going to want to hit at least probably 20 or 22 miles. And most marathon plans that you see, I mean, there's a huge spectrum of different plans out there, but the 20-mile long run is kind of the staple for marathon runners, because that's when you start to really burn fat or run out of glycogen, basically. Hit the wall, so to speak, and you want to simulate that to some extent. But again, it depends on your weekly mileage. If you're running 20 miles a week, 30 miles a week, obviously the 20-mile long run is probably going to outdo you, because it's going to be 75 to 80% of your weekly volume. So that would be too much. And another major influence, at least on my training philosophy, is Advanced Marathoning by Pete Pfitzinger. He was a Cornell grad. He ran the Olympics in 84 and 88 in the marathon. He's the first American to beat Alberto Salazar at the marathon. But he's an exercise science guy, someone I really, really respect. And in his book, he's got a lot of different marathon training plans. But even for the people that top out at 55 miles a week training for a marathon, he still advocates doing up to 18 to 20-mile long runs. And as you know, contradicting what Jack Daniels said, that's a little bit of a higher percentage of your weekly volume. But say, for example, you have someone running maybe 40 miles a week, they're probably going to still want to run at least probably an 18-mile long run if they're really targeting a marathon. And then, of course, if you're training for a shorter event, 5K to 10K to half marathon, you definitely could go to the lower end of these percents in terms of your weekly mileage, because if you're only training for a 10K, doing a bunch of really hard 20-mile long runs probably isn't going to help you as much as doing the other more specific speed workouts and tempo runs and faster stuff. It could actually tire you out. So unless you're running 120 miles a week like the elites who train for 10K doing that, you probably are doing more of a 10 to 12 mile long run for your 10K or 5K effort. And there's a lot of athletes that I coach that run the half marathon, and usually they're a lot of times, if they're lower mileage, maybe 40 miles a week, 30 miles a week, their long run slowly works up from being actually below the race distance. Maybe it's 8 miles one week and then 9, 10, and they're only doing 12-mile long runs, working their way up to the 13.1 mile distance. And for a lot of beginners, the 13.1 mile distance is going to be the longest long run that they've ever done in their whole life, and that's going to be their race day. So it really depends on where you are in the spectrum, but general rule of thumb is to look at those percentiles, 20%, 30% of your weekly mileage. And of course you don't want to get injured as well, so that's always a double-edged sword and something you have to be cautious with. In terms of the intensity and pace that you do these long runs at, again, it varies. If you're training for a marathon, you definitely want to get down close to marathon race pace, your marathon goal pace, I think, at the end of the long run. And overall, if you were doing a 20-mile long run, you want the overall pace to be relatively close to your goal marathon pace. And for more advanced runners, that's actually harder to do. But if you're looking for maybe a Boston qualifier, or you're looking to run a 3:30 marathon, whatever in that range, you're going to want to start off maybe 20-30 seconds a mile slower than marathon pace, and then maybe at the very end you're working it down and you're hitting marathon pace for the last 5 or 6 miles. And so it's been this nice negative split run where you've sped up throughout the run. But starting a minute a mile slower than marathon pace, starting at a more comfortable effort for a long run workout is perfectly acceptable as well. Whereas there's other workouts where you could really throw down and challenge yourself. And I'll get into that on the third section here in workout examples. But the intensity is going to vary. And that's another thing I want to bring into the talk, is that you don't always want to do the same type of long run every week. It's not every Sunday, I have the most time away from work or family, and I'm going to do my long run, and it's going to be the same every week. You want to change it up a bit. So in Fitzinger's advanced marathoning plan, he actually has more of a schedule. In a lot of the weeks in his schedules, he has a mid-run long run, medium long run, and then the weekend long run. So you're actually doing, maybe some weekends you don't have to run as long, maybe you don't have as much time, maybe you're tired, so you don't do a full long run. But maybe on Wednesday you got off from work early, or you had the day off or something, and you had more time to squeeze in maybe a 12-mile long, a medium length type of long run. So that's a good stimulus, and it's good to change it up. And some weeks you might want to be able to go the full distance and say, you know what, I'm going to run as far as I ever have in training. I'm going to do a 20-mile long run, and it's going to take a while because you don't want to go all out, and you want it to be a relatively comfortable effort if you're really trying to go the distance. Whereas maybe the next week you only have time for a 14 or 15 mile long run, but you go really fast the whole time. So and then for 5K and 10K runners, obviously the stimulus is a little bit different. Generally you're doing shorter long runs, and they don't necessarily have to be every week, because you're also balancing in a lot more of the speed workouts in the shorter intervals, which I also have done a talk on here, and I'll link to that 5K, 10K training for my people focusing on the shorter races. And so just to give you some examples for some workouts that you could do as your long run. I'm a big fan of negative splitting runs, meaning running the second half of the run a lot faster than the first. So you could start off warming up a couple miles. Maybe you're warming up really easy pace, 1.5 minutes per mile slower than marathon goal pace. And you warm up doing that for 5-6 miles. And then by the time you get into an hour, maybe into your run, or you're 10 miles into your run, you think about really picking it up. So an example workout would be doing maybe an 18-mile run where you start off pretty comfortable the first 10 miles, but then you slowly start speeding up from miles 10 to 18. You're speeding up to 20 seconds a mile, slower than marathon pace, to marathon pace basically, and then trying to run a couple miles even faster than your marathon goal pace. And then you're at the very end of the long run. You're getting tired from all the cumulative fatigue building up in your legs, just from doing the effort and from high mileage training in general. And then you warm down maybe for a mile and ease back. But that's a really good type of workout that really gets your legs moving and gets the fat burning stimulus going as well. That's going to help you fight through the fatigue and pain that you'll definitely encounter in a race like a marathon. And then another workout that I like to do is just go for distance, just go for time on your feet. And in Fitzinger's book, he has a good point where if you do like a hard 20 or 22 miler, if you do it at the right pace, your finishing time is gonna be about the same as what your marathon time goal would be if you were running at race pace. And you could also just say, I'm gonna go for 3 hours, or I'm gonna go for 2.5 hours, and that's perfectly acceptable. You might have a mileage goal in mind where you say, I'm gonna run 22 miles, or if you're an ultra runner, for example, and I trained for my first ultra, I had to go 28 miles. Which is even way farther than I've ever gone just racing the marathon or training for the marathon. And I'll put a link up to that video there, 28-mile long run workout. But it's really important to take that into consideration with your training and your mileage and not getting hurt. And if you're going to do a really long distance run that you've never done the distance before in training, it's better to take that slow and steady and just say, I'm going to go 60% to 70% of my maximum heart rate type of effort. Just make sure I get the distance in and not blow up, and not totally get dehydrated or totally go out too fast and run out of glycogen and walk it in. So that's another long run you can do, is just go for distance, go for your maximum distance, your maximum duration. And then a final long run workout that I really like to do is a fartlek workout. Fartlek meaning speed play, but you start off again the long run, maybe it's a 16-mile long run, and you go out in the first hour or so, first 8 miles, you're running pretty easy, pretty steady. But then you start doing your fartlek workout where you do 3-minute surges, where you're running closer to 10K pace for 3 minutes, and then you take a 2-minute jog right after that hard effort, and to recover. And then you repeat the cycle again. You do 3 minutes at 10K effort, 2-minute recovery jog. And the recovery jog could still be pretty fast. It could still be whatever it takes to just catch your breath, but you're still moving at a pretty fast average pace. The good thing is this really stimulates your legs to go a lot faster than your marathon pace, and it kind of stimulates the fast twitch muscle fibers to shift gears, which is going to make a steady, slower marathon pace feel a lot more comfortable. And runners like Nate Jenkins, who have the Renato Canova influence, who coaches a lot of Kenyans, they do this workout. They call them the alternating kilometers type of workout, where they surge back and forth for a kilometer or 3 minutes or however long it takes them. But that's a good workout to do as well. And then a lot of plans you'll see, you know, Hanson's Marathon Method, Runner's World Plan, 3 days a week. They're a lot different. They'll have you actually run marathon pace for a really long time. And actually at my time at Hanson's, we did the simulator workout, which was 16 miles, all at marathon goal pace. And honestly, I thought that was a little too stressful, at least for me, because I totally blew my load on that workout. And it would always happen like 4 weeks before a marathon, and you'd run really well there, you'd be really fit, and then you'd come out in the marathon and kind of be tired from it. So that's a really stressful thing to do, is to try to run marathon pace for 16 miles all at once. But you definitely want to do some long runs where you hit marathon pace intensity if you're training for a marathon. You want that to be very familiar. And the Runner's World Plan, train for a marathon 3 days a week. It's good if you just want to finish the marathon, but if you want to run fast, if you really want to reach your potential, I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's a lot of intensity and pretty low volume. And again, you're doing like a tempo run, a speed workout, and a long run all in a week, and you're doing those basically 3 workouts. And the long run really builds up high. It's a really high percentage of what your weekly mileage volume is. And that's kind of risky for injury, it's risky for burnout, but it's also just not going to allow you to reach your overall potential speed in any distance event. So that's my training talk on long runs for 5K to marathon training. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to more training talks from this YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe. I'll put the links below and at the end of this video. But thanks again for all the support. I know this is a long video, and I wish you all the best in your future races and training for 2015. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more VO2max Productions.